This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. It is a chilly Victory Monday here in Pittsburgh. It was a chilly day Sunday in Cincinnati, but, well, it just warmed your heart to the conkles to see the Escalooser fire up at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
I had some buddies over at the game and taking pictures, sending to me, say this thing is rolling already. I mean, the hearts of Bengals fans are turned to stone. The Grinch. I mean,
they might have frozen a little bit, but there was plenty of action going back and forth in that game. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley, by the way. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt, so much to unpeel from that game yesterday in Cincinnati at Paycor Stadium. Russell Wilson was fabulous.
Yeah, he was great.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. However you want to. He actually outplayed Joe Burrow to a large degree.
I was super impressed with both.
Burrow played very good.
Yes.
But he did throw an interception.
Yep.
And his was a legit interception. It wasn't.
That made me great. Let's get that out of the way. How is that not called, by the way?
I don't know.
I mean, I understand. I do think Pickens was falling, but then you helped him by grabbing his helmet, not even like nudged him, shoulder pad or whatever.
Grabbed him and pulled
anything
him to the ground.
To the head is illegal use of hands to the head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, man, they're going to lose this game because of that. And frankly, the teams from the last 5 years or so
would have done so.
They would have. There's
if you
no
gave
way
up
that
a
they
defensive score like that early in the game, it was done.
And had to throw. I mean, they didn't have to throw. They chose to throw. They threw a high percentage of the time in the first half. I'm sure by design. But then when you're down 7-0 before you know it, maybe even more, and you could. I mean, part of it's the Bengals' defense is really bad. But I thought Wilson was tremendous.
Tremendous. They answered every time that the Bengals would score, including that one.
Yeah.
The Steelers answered with a score of their own, and then finally took the lead at the end of the first half, and basically just kind of continued to expand upon that.
Yeah. And then I thought the pass rush took over in the second half to some degree. When I mean, they're a pass-heavy team to begin with. Defense made plays. We knew they were going to allow yardage and points. I mean, you just knew that. And, again, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Chase Brown. I mean, those guys are playmakers. Those guys are really, really good. I think it's a top 3 type offense. But I think the overriding thing is now you can play that style of game. If you want to play 13-9 against the Ravens and hand it to Najee over and over and over and play with big people and battle it out and be the more physical team against the Chargers in round 1 or whatever. Okay, we can play that style fight, I mean, there's been a lot of good Steeler teams that can't play every style of fight. You know?
This one can. And, that's I've just looking at comments on stuff and the defense had an awful day.
I don't think.
The other guys get paid too. And your defense took the ball away 3 times. You sacked Burrow 4 times. You hit him 11 times.
Yeah.
I thought the defense played pretty damn well.
Absolutely. I thought, with all respect to Wilson and Burrow, who were awesome, I thought Cam Hayward was the best player in the stadium.
If you look back at their big runs, including there
was one.
The 40-yard
one big one, yeah.
He wasn't on the field for the 13-yard run before the 40-yard run, and he wasn't on the field for the 40-yard run. So 53 of those rushing yards came when Cam Hayward wasn't on the field.
He was unbelievable in this
When
game.
he was out there, they didn't run the football.
They didn't run the football at all. And his pass rush is dominant. I mean, I know it didn't matter, but he splatters Chase Brown. I mean, wow. He had a couple plays where he's chasing the football that's ridiculous. I was just on with Mark Madden, and in a different show, I said the exact same thing. I firmly believe he is the best player in the league at swatting passes at the line of scrimmage.
He's got 8 of them.
And he's got 8 of them, which is bonkers.
Most cornerbacks don't have 8 pass defenses.
Right, that they get thrown at time and time again. And I believe T.J. Watt is the best at causing fumbles in the whole league. And it's trickling down to all their teammates, too.
Yeah.
Everyone else around them is getting really, really good at those 2 things, too.
Yeah.
Huge plays.
So Watt now has 5 forced fumbles this season, which leads the league. He has 32 since he came into the league, which is the most over that period.
Yeah.
To your point, it has trickled down. He and Herbig are tied for the league lead in strip sacks of the quarterback.
With Myles Garrett.
I
was about to say that. I didn't know if you knew that. I was like, I was going to phrase it like this. Well, T.J. Watt and Garrett are tied for strip sacks. with Herbig,
yeah.
who plays half the snaps that those guys do. He's a part-time player over the course of a year, but a really good one. And whipping up on Orlando Brown, who's 100 pounds heavier, extreme length difference, and is allowed to leave early.
Apparently he's allowed to get a jump start on that, yeah.
Yeah, time and time again, you're allowed to go early. Okay. I was on a show with Wolf just a little bit ago. I'm like, would it have been helpful if you could move anytime you wanted? Yeah, that wouldn't have been bad. What is going on with the league with that?
I don't
the Chiefs
get it.
do it over and over, too.
Yeah, they get away with it constantly. And it seems to me maybe these good offenses and some of these older guys are just, we'll let that go.
Some of it's you're just not going to throw a flag every time or no one's going to watch. But come on, man.
Yeah.
It's bad.
It is bad.
And he still lost to Herbig consistently in the pass game.
Yeah. But just I thought it was a great game plan by Arthur Smith. A lot of passes to the backs early.
Yeah.
All right, you're going to drop your linebackers 10 yards off the line of scrimmage?
That's another one I don't get from the Bengals perspective.
Just keep dumping it off, and you're getting 10 yards a pop every time you did it.
Right over the middle of the field, over and over and over. We're going to do it until you stop it. Sometimes you get them either with their just back, showing their numbers, or getting them in stride. But either way, they flip their hips and run over a defensive back and get 8 more on top of it. And watching on TV, there's a lot of those plays where you don't even see a Bengal in the frame.
It was like stealing.
It was like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And back to Wilson, he did so many good things, and I'm not privy to what goes on, obviously, behind the scenes, but it seemed more than ever he was making things happen at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap, adjusting protection.
Whatever they were doing, he was
move a tight end over here. Yeah. Sometimes they almost didn't get the snap off.
They're going to the line of scrimmage with 15 to 20 seconds left, even late in the game when they're trying to run the clock out, and he's just directing guys, all right, you go
all
there.
Over. Right.
It was like he was practicing calculus.
Absolutely. And the result, we saw the result, but the result that people don't always think about was he gets you out of the bad plays. No one's a perfect play caller. You don't know what the defense is going to be. So you call in a play or two or however they do it through the headset. He comes to the line of scrimmage and be like, this play is designed to run where all their dudes are at. Or, I'm getting out of that. Where Fields, Pickett, Rudolph, all those guys aren't that advanced. Maybe they will be in 10 years, but they're just not that advanced.
I thought the perfect example of that, the Steelers are leading 41-31. There is what do we have left on the clock here? Just over 7 minutes left in the game.
Okay.
So it's still a ball game.
Oh, yeah. That's a dangerous team on the other side.
It's 3rd and 9 at the Pittsburgh 42. He goes up to the line of scrimmage with about, again, 15 to 20 seconds on the play clock. Looks around, starts moving some receivers around, gets Van Jefferson matched up one-on-one on the right side of the field, and hit him on a little skinny post.
Yeah.
That might be the hardest football I've ever seen thrown. He just gunned
he knew
that
he was going
thing
there before the snap, obviously.
The safety, all the safeties went, okay, you're going to put all these guys on that side of the field?
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
I'm going to hit you on a slant with an in-breaking route against outside leverage.
Threw that ball before he even came out of his break.
Yeah.
It was just like right there and, again, stealing. But that ball had,
he's throwing with velocity.
Yeah.
I know we're going to have Rob on next segment, and he said this before. You and I have said this before, too. But the word Rob always uses for Wilson, which I think we both agree with, is crisp. Even at camp, he would throw a touchdown pass. He's not high five. He's looking at the sideline, what's the next play? Everything's crisp. It's now. I'm using every second efficiently, And same thing, I know my linemen are in their stance, but the defense is telling me more. I'm going to adjust with 5 seconds left in the play clock. Boom, going to switch to a run against this bubble. Najee for 8. It's get out of bad stuff.
Yeah, I thought when Mike Tomlin said, hey, this is AFC North football, we're not playing checkers, we're playing chess.
Mm-hmm.
And that was chess.
A lot of it, yeah.
There was a lot of chess going on out there because Lou Anarumo, despite not having any talent on that Cincinnati defense.
That's a tough watch, man.
I still think he's a good defensive coordinator. He throws a lot of different stuff at you.
I don't think he'll be back next year. But
I don't think so either.
Someone else is going to hire him.
Scoop him up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, hey, if he wants to be a consultant on this staff, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? In a Flores-like manner or whatever. But he still has a great mind for it. No,
they just don't have any talent.
Anything. Yeah,
They're the guys that they have drafted. Or we said it last week that
it's glaring.
The guys they have drafted in the high rounds, who you expect to play right now, just they stink.
They stink. They're misses. Wilson's not the greatest linebacker in the league, but he's the green dot guy, and I mean he's the second most important guy in that unit. And he was out. They had some backups
Sheldon
in there.
Rankins was out.
Yeah, and they've had issues all year. And not only their young guys not hitting, but I hate to say it, but like Mike Hilton's getting shot. The guys they went out and bought several years ago,
getting older.
Austin runs right by him.
By the way, Trey Hendrickson playing that game yesterday.
I know. I mean that poor guy too. He's like Burrow.
Yeah.
Like I'm a one-man show here. It's a team game.
Yeah, and you
other 10 could help me out.
Yeah. The Steelers did a much better job this week of making sure he didn't wreck the game than they did the week before against Garrett. And that was, it was a situation where it was, hey, guys when Dan Moore was supposed to have help against Garrett, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
They made sure they fixed that, in the second half of that game, but then carried it over to this game, and you're not going to leave your guys one-on-one. Nobody leaves their
right tackle against Watt.
Yeah, right. You don't leave your right tackle alone by himself against Watt.
Sure.
Not consistently anyways. And he had an assisted tackle and one quarterback hit in that game.
I don't even know what his stat line was. I mean, it wasn't much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, by the same token, I thought Watt was his typical dominant. He had 5 quarterback hits in that game.
I know. I thought him and Hayward were phenomenal. Herbig was really, really good, too. It was a big thing we talked about last week was this game needs to be on the D-line. After the D-line underachieved in Cleveland. I'm sure they weren't happy at all about that. And I bet over 10 days they heard about it, or Cam told them about it, Watt told them about it, and it was a really impressive performance against a quarterback who's really hard to sack, too. He moves around well. He gets the ball out. He had a really short time to throw, which reminds me, too, Wilson had his lowest time to throw and lowest average depth of target as a Steeler. It's like, we will take our shots, but if you're going to let me have these long handoffs in the middle of the field, I'll do it over and over and over.
He still averaged 10.9 yards per attempt.
And the results were better than ever. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it. That's not a negative, but the ball came out.
The ball came out. It went to the people who needed to get it.
10 receivers.
I don't think there was a pass in the game outside of the interception that I don't know if the Bengals got a hand on a ball.
Probably not. I can't think of one. And the interception was a goofy play.
They had 2 pass defenses. One was on the interception. So they got one hand on it.
Did they give you a pass defense on interceptions?
Yeah.
Kind of like a sack and a quarterback hit being one of the same.
So they had one other pass that they broke up.
Okay, the whole day.
Everything else was
threw
just,
a lot.
Yeah. He had 9 incompletions. Like 4 of those were throwaways.
Yeah.
And
there's also 2, quote, negative plays were sacks. One of them he kind of took on purpose, just to play it safe, keep the game.
Don't throw the ball. We're going to let the clock keep running because they've used all their timeouts.
He probably could have thrown it out the back of the end zone and avoid the sack. And the second one, I thought was a weird scorer situation where I thought he was becoming a runner. I would not have called that a sack. So sacks have been a problem over his career. Not in this game. He had a really good feel for it. Right?
Yeah, that first one that you were talking about, I think that was in the early in the third quarter. He ran towards the line of scrimmage and slid.
Yeah.
And actually,
short of the line.
Slid well past the line of scrimmage before he was touched. But once you start that slide, that's where it goes.
So if it takes one more step, it's not a sack.
It was no gain.
Yeah.
If he goes 2 inches farther, it's he got a yard.
That wasn't his O-line breaking down.
No.
Right. I thought the O-line played well. It's so easy to focus on some of the other things, receiving, catch, or the running backs catching the ball, big Freiermuth game, all the stuff Pickens did, good and bad. I thought the O-line had a really good game too.
Yeah, they opened up holes. Najee was running hard.
I think Jones
catching
is getting
the ball.
better and better.
All the backs really had big games.
They did. And again, big Freiermuth game. I thought the right side of the O-line had maybe their best game of the year. The opponent has something to do with it.
Yeah.
That's not Myles Garrett on the other side of him and all that.
But
good
with
stuff.
young guys, it helps build confidence.
Absolutely. And I know Broderick Jones is been up and down, but he's super young, and I think he's a tier above since the bye.
I think the last 4 games or so have been
what you want to see.
Yeah, the best of
go in that
what we've
direction, 100%.
Now he did miss the block on the blocked field goal.
Oh, was that him? I thought that was Loudermilk. Okay.
Loudermilk blocked to the right,
They didn't show that well, or I wasn't paying enough attention.
And Broderick didn't block anybody.
Oh, okay.
And the guys slipped in between. It's easy to happen in those kind of situations because the other teams have coaches too.
Yeah.
Just like the other teams are professionals.
We'll be talking about how smart Danny Smith is, not
right.
who blew LeBlanc. Right. So there's two sides to it.
So just something you have to clean up there. I mean, but if you look at that from that perspective, they had 10 drives in the game.
Steelers or Bengals?
The Steelers.
Okay.
That didn't include a kneel down.
Yeah. Punted once.
So 10 drives. They punted once. They had a field goal blocked.
Mm-hmm. Pick six.
A pick six.
They would have lost the game 10 out of 10 times.
They had 7 scoring drives in the game.
7 scoring
out of 10.
Right. That's pretty awesome. Right.
I mean, just
pretty dominant.
Doing whatever you wanted to against. And that was the thing when we were talking about this game last week, and I kept hearing from you, I don't know, this Bengals team, they can score. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
But the defense is really bad.
Again, we kept calling them even Steven. I mean, the defense is as bad as the offense is good. And you had a great quote in the lobby here. Like, Joe Burrow is one of the best 5 quarterbacks on the planet. Every week. I 100% agree. But who else is the top 5 quarterback every week? The guys that play the Bengals.
Yeah. By and large. I mean, unless it was Daniel Jones or Deshaun Watson,
right.
Everybody else has torn that defense apart.
And that has to be so hard if you're Burrow. I'm like, I can live with I duel Mahomes or Allen, and
you lose.
It's a fair fight, and I lose 31-30. But if I'm doing, Joe Blow, and I'm not calling Wilson Joe Blow, but if it's every week against average quarterbacks and they're outplaying me and I'm better than them, this is getting old quick, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk about the next 2 hours, but state of the 2 Ohio teams is getting worse. I mean, the arrow's going down.
Looks pretty bad.
Big time.
Looks pretty bad.
I'm talking about offseason.
And there's no quick fixes there for either one of them.
No, not at all. I mean, Higgins isn't going to be back. He's a really good player. They got some issues, man. I wouldn't be shocked if Hendrickson's on a different team.
Even if they went out and they figured out a way to re-sign Higgins, they also have to give Chase a new contract.
He's going to be the richest receiver in the league.
Yeah. And so you're not going to tie up, let's say, $65 million in salary cap between those 2 receivers because the defense, you're not fixing that, and you're not fixing your offensive line.
Yeah.
Which is also a problem.
Again, when they spend a lot of money on like the Hiltons of the world, they also went out and got the Kappas of the world too. Who are fine.
Just guys.
That was better than what Burrow started with.
You probably paid them a little bit more than what they were worth to get them in there.
People aren't super psyched to go there, for one thing, and you needed them bad. And anytime you're buying O-line on the open market, you're overpaying. And Burrow was getting killed his first 2 years in the league, so we actually overspent and built a line that was respectable. Well, now those guys are falling off too. They're getting old, and you mentioned it before we went on the air. They need 7 new defensive starters.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds about the number.
One draft doesn't do that for you. Plus, strengthening the offensive line. You only have so many picks.
Exactly. It's a problem. I mean, it's going to be Burrow swimming upstream for a while now, I think.
Yeah, he may get tired of that.
Yeah,
might get tired of that because he's very competitive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a tough place to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's get to a break. We're going to talk more about the Steelers' big win. Gets them to 9-3.
Love it.
Clinches the 21st consecutive non-losing season.
Which ties the record.
Ties the all-time record with the Dallas Cowboys. Now the next step here is getting playoff wins.
Mm-hmm.
And some things changed around the league as well yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about that more, but before we do that, we got Rob King joining us here in the next segment. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're joined on the Justin Miller hotline by Steelers play-by-play announcer Rob King and published author now, Rob King. So,
congratulations.
Yeah,
the book is out.
Appreciate it, guys.
You want to tell people before we get started here on the Steelers? You want to tell people about the book a little bit here.
So it is the first book of the fantasy trilogy. It's aimed largely at middle grade students, although everybody that's read it. So
it's right up our alley.
So maybe I can read it.
Exactly.
I would understand, right?
So it's.
So you have to dumb it down for Wolf.
Does it have lots of pictures?
No pictures. Come on now. Well, actually, there are because my daughter illustrated a couple.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's cool.
She did the cover too. She's a very talented artist. It's called The Door in the Stone. It can be purchased on Amazon. Rob King, The Door in the Stone. Wonderful holiday gift idea.
There you go.
For all those young readers out there. But, when I was a kid, I was always a big reader. We're not a big TV family. Go read a book or go play outside. That was our options. So as a kid, I always read just nothing but like Hardy Boy books and whatever sports biography I could find. I mean, I read, I wore out the library. I was down to like Rocky Calavito, Jim Jensen, people like that that are barely remembered by sports people. And then around that middle grade, age, it was, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and all those books, the Narnia books and all that stuff. And it really opened up the kind of reading I was. I went on to be an English literature major in college and still love to read. So those books hold a special part in my heart, which is why I wrote for that age group. Although, again, if you're a grown up and you go back and read those Narnia books, they're still very readable. So that's why I wrote them for that age, and so hopefully people will read them and enjoy them. And thanks guys, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So check that out. Again, that's Rob King, the author, and you can get that just in time for Christmas. Kinger,
exactly.
Speaking of lots of fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
You had to have a lot of fun calling that game yesterday because there was all kinds of action going on.
A little bit.
Up and down the field.
Absolute blast. I remember looking up at the clock. I think there was like 7 minutes left in the second quarter or whatever. It was 21-21. I was like, oh, my goodness. I was joking with Wolf during the commercial. I said, in a bit of like a fake play-by-play voice, I said, all right, Wolf, 63-63, 35 seconds left in this one. And he goes, what? Wait, did I miss something? I said, no, I was just messing around, man. But, it was an incredible pace and very heartening to see the Steelers be able to win a game that I don't think over the last, 4 or 5 years, frankly, they would be capable of winning. And again, was this the Kansas City Chiefs? Is it the Buffalo Bills? No. But I think it's a very dangerous team. I think it's going to be a team that will be back next year. They've had some health problems. I think that they have a specific need or two that can get them right back to contention very quickly. It's a very talented roster.
I think they have more than that. Matt and I were just talking about that.
Do you?
Like, oh, yeah, that they need like 7 defensive players.
We're talking about the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Chase is. I don't think that Higgins will be there next year. I mean, no. It's not going to be quite the same. But
no, it won't be. I mean, I think that they are hoping that Jermaine Burton, who's a super talented guy, first-round talent, third-round pick, and that obviously there are reasons for that. You're hoping that he's going to pan out for you. Zach Moss wasn't having a great year when he got hurt, but, really the back end, I think, was really hurt by DJ Turner and Dax Hill being hurt. The defensive line, I think the biggest problem on the team, the 2 linebackers are good, solid, professional linebackers, Pratt and Wilson. I like them both. I think they're both good players. The biggest problem to me is that they thought Sheldon Rankins was going to be able to replace DJ Reader, and he's not been the same player. The defensive line has not been good. Now, they drafted guys in the second and third round that, again, I think will mature. And I think the decision you have to make on Hubbard is he just having an injury-plagued year, or for some reason is he just hit a wall? He had injury problems early on. He has not been the same guy. So when I say, I think you shore up the defensive line, maybe you get, an interior offensive lineman, and sure, you want a little help in the back end, but that's not, 1,000 problems. I think their problems to me are pretty easily recognizable, and it's a matter of whether they have the resources financially and draft pick wise to be able to fix them.
Or the wherewithal to use those.
Yeah, they got to start hitting on picks too.
They've not not spent a lot over the years in terms of free agency. So, we'll see about that. But it doesn't take away from what the Steelers did on the field yesterday. You mentioned Kansas City and Buffalo. Cincinnati's offensive skill position players are better than both of those teams. If you take everything into the equation, quarterback, running back, wide receivers are better than Buffalo and Kansas City, and you went out there and outscored those units.
Right. I think when you look at quarterback and top two receivers, that combination of players, if you took the quarterback out, and I think Burrow's phenomenal, no team's got two receivers quite as good as Chase and Higgins.
Agreed.
So, yes, I think that it is, and Gesicki, working out of the slot. And there's another thing. Eric All's another guy, that young tight end who they really missed because they really have to mix and match. I mean, Gesicki's a receiving tight end. But regardless, forget the Bengals. Yeah, they're a formidable challenge, and I think it underscores the importance of what the Steelers did to get faster and better on defense, faster and better in the middle of the field. Joey Porter Jr. had the penalties. We understand that. He's been he's done a really solid job against a lot of tough matchups early on in the season, I think. But then you have Dante Jackson on the other side. Man, what an upgrade he's been. He gives you that second guy that can cover when you run into a team like Cincinnati. And then you have Queen and Peyton Wilson with their speed in the middle of the field. Deshaun Elliott adds a different speed element in the back end alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick. I just think, and then, of course, the bounce back season for Cam Hayward. I mean, I can name the whole defense. Herbig, what a luxury to have a guy like that be your third guy. So when Highsmith is out, you're not really feeling it. I mean, it is doff of the cap for sure. Look, people, hey, you gave up 31 points. Why are you doffing the cap? Well, because it's an explosive offense. It was a shootout type of game, and you were able to make the plays you needed to win the game.
So we can all admit that Cincy's defensive line, besides Hendrickson, isn't great. But
right.
I really like the way, kind of an underreported issue, because it's easy to focus on Cam and Watt and Russ and all these stars that are playing like stars. But I think the Steelers' O-line every week takes kind of a baby step forward. And the right side of the line in this game took a nice step forward to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Matt. And first of all, Dan Moore continues to have a very good season at a very good time for him. Without a contract after the season, Hendrickson didn't do anything yesterday. I mean, he did nothing. And Dan Moore gets a lot of credit for that. But, when I think of the season, and look, you want to always play the best possible game you can play. But I really think that this becomes the time of season in which you want to start finding yourself. You want to start peaking toward the postseason. And I think it's understandable that when you have, young players, and Broderick Jones is still a young player at right tackle, and you have Zach Frazier, who's been really pretty darn good from the get-go, and Mason McCormick, who's starting. And again, don't forget, Troy Fautanu was your starting right tackle.
Still looming out there, right?
And Daniels was your starting right guard. So you would hope that these guys would progress as the season goes on. It's never going to be a linear fashion. It's just, it's not a bar graph where you go from, the left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner to the upper right-hand corner. It just doesn't work that way. But, these guys playing at the level they're playing at and hopefully getting better as you get into the playoffs and reaching a peak as the playoffs begin. That is, I think, encouraging. That's what you want as a team. Nobody remembers who was the best team in the NFL in Week 10. And that best team in Week 10, injuries, players petering out, players hitting a wall. It's not always the team that also wins the Super Bowl.
And I like that the five of them are starting to get some continuity. We can't overlook all the combinations they've had to play early in the season.
Absolutely. Matt, it's 100% right. It is it's a unit. It is vitally important for that group to be able to communicate, to know the strengths and weaknesses of the people by you, because it just takes one sliver, one guy shooting a gap in a passing situation. Look at yesterday. Look at the plays that the Steelers defense made that were vital at vital times, whether it's Cam Hayward getting a hand up and deflecting a ball, or rocketing through for a sack, whether it's TJ Watt with a couple of sacks, maybe the biggest play of the game, that strip sack that Wilson picked up and ran in for a score. It just takes a little flash, a little bit of room, a little bit of space, a little bit of miscommunication up front for a defense to be able to turn a game like the Steelers defense turned the game yesterday.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And we talked about it even last week that you knew you were going to have to score points against this Bengals team because they were going to score points. They're going to put points on the board. They've now lost 3 games this season where they've scored more than 33 points. The rest of the league's lost 2.
It's crazy. It really is.
Or is it 4? Yeah, it's now 3, right?
There's some obscene numbers with it.
I mean,
depending where you put the cutoff at 30 or 33.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. But they've scored pretty much against everybody. It's just a matter of can you outscore them. And to me, that was the big thing. Your offense showed that it is capable of doing that. Yes, your defense gave up some yards and stuff like that. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, your defense forced 3 turnovers. You had 4 sacks. You got stops against. You had a couple of 3-and-outs against the Bengals, which gave your offense a chance to get back on the field, and the offense answered the bell. I thought that was a pretty complete game yesterday.
Yeah, and along those lines, like we were talking about, I mean, the Bengals have scored 35 points 3 times and are 1-2 in those games. The rest of the league is 35-0 when they score 35 points. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. The other stat I think that I was told before this game was that they'd had 3 losses in which they'd scored 33 or more points, and the entire rest of the NFL had 2, and Tom Brady had 4 in his career. So the Bengals have now had more in the first 12 games of this season, losses with scoring 33 or more points than Tom Brady had in his entire career.
They've matched him.
That's crazy.
And they have a bunch of opportunities to add to it. They're not done yet.
Yes, they keep going. And when you look at this team, and the reason that this game scared me, well, we just saw it. They scored 38 points, 7 of my defense. We get that. And again, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how many times over the years, including against the Bengals, have we seen a team be able to score points against the Steelers, and the Steelers just don't have an answer? And I've said this a couple of times this year, but to me, for fans, and look, we all, hey, you could have managed that situation better at the first half. Okay, maybe you could have. And clock management wise, I understand that. But this, to me, what the Steelers are doing now is a reminder to me of what a great job Mike Tomlin and his staff has done the last couple of years, because we're seeing the importance of the quarterback position, right? And think about all the teams around the league in which their quarterback is hurt, and that's it. They're 4-13. They're 5-12. They're done.
It's done. Yeah, it's over.
And the Steelers are running out a guy from Duck Dynasty and making it to 500 or pushing for a playoff spot. It's remarkable what they've been able to do. Remarkable they've been able to win 1-score games, and now we're seeing what happens. And again, I'm just as guilty of this as anybody else. Guilty of forgetting what a championship caliber, Hall of Fame caliber quarterback can do for a team. What Ben Roethlisberger used to be able to do for the Steelers. Hey, we're losing in the fourth quarter. Ben says, "Don't worry about it. I got it." We have to get in a shootout. Ben says, "Don't worry about it. I got it." Well, now we have Russell Wilson being able to say those things in the huddle and to his teammates as well, and we saw evidence of that yesterday.
Yeah, and the other big thing, Rob, is people were harping on the red zone offense all last week because obviously they didn't score in the red zone against the Ravens, even though they won the game. And, they went 1 for 2 in the red zone against the Browns and lost that game. So red zone offense, red zone offense, red zone offense. All we heard about. And I kept telling people, including people, who listen to this show and respond in the comments section, I'm like, it's not, I don't think it's an issue. And here's why. Every red zone trip is not the same. They scored on their first 2 trips in the red zone yesterday. Mm-hmm. They scored a touchdown on both of them. The next time they go into the red zone is at the end of the first half. They hit a pass to Jaylen Warren to get to the 16. They call timeout and kick a field goal. That counts as a failed red zone trip.
Right.
But in reality, it was not a failed red zone trip. You did exactly what you were trying to do in that situation, which was to put some points on the board before the end of the half. The last red zone trip, They get to the 4, but they're running the ball, trying to get the Bengals to use their timeouts. They get them to use all 3 timeouts. Wilson takes a sack on purpose,
the clock,
on third down to let the clock continue to run because the Bengals are now out of timeouts, and so you kick another field goal. Again, counts as a failed red zone trip, but in reality, it was a very good
trip. Yeah,
it was a very successful trip because you went the length of the field, you kicked a field goal to make it a 13-point game, and you forced them to use all their timeouts.
Yep.
Right.
But that's next level. It's next level thinking on this stuff. You can't just look at the numbers and say, "Well, this offense isn't performing well."
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing too. They're I love statistics, but they do have to be taken into context, and it's not always easy to do that. And you sometimes think, and I would say this, like over the course of, if we get to the end of the regular season, there's going to be enough statistical evidence that within some plus or minus scale, you're going to be able to say, okay, the Steelers have been good in the red zone. They were good in the red zone in Washington, right? I think that look, there are still stories to be told in this team. We talk about yesterday's game. You get a pick six, you get a blocked field goal. That's unlike the Steelers. The Steelers' special teams have been a plus almost uniformly throughout the season. But there's still time left to tell the story of what this team's going to look like going into the playoffs. And then, of course, the playoffs, it can be entirely different as well. But I think that's, you'll find out what trends there are and what things you need to improve upon when you just have a little more evidence. I mean, Russell Wilson has started, what was that, 6 games now?
He's now started 6, yeah.
They've won 5.
Yeah, 5-1 as a starter, averaging 29 points a game.
Still getting to know these guys.
That number feels real to me. Because look, you're reduced by what you can do offensively in the snow in Cleveland. The Steelers and Ravens always score under 20 points when they play, and in the other games, the Steelers' offense has been explosive. So, again, let's check back in a couple weeks from now, and after you play Baltimore again, and after you played Philadelphia, and after you played Kansas City, we'll see where those numbers lie. I suspect they're going to lie in a good spot. But that's why you play the games. As I said before, it's not like two guys run out there with statistics at midfield and, my statistics are better than yours.
This isn't Stratomatic.
Yeah, he runs off with his hands in the air. Oh, that's it. Yeah, the Chiefs have won. You got to actually play the game. So
it's not rock, paper, scissors out there.
No, it isn't. Yeah, heavy emphasis on the paper.
There you go. Well, Kinger, we'll let you go. Again, you can check out Rob's book. Where can they buy that at, Rob?
Amazon.
There you go.
Rob King, Door in the Stone. If you get to Rob King and there's like some complex book on mathematical equations, that's a different Rob
That's
King.
not you.
This is called The Door in the Stone. It's a middle grade fantasy book. Thanks for the plug, guys. Hope people buy it and enjoy it. And thanks for having me on.
Always, Rob. That's Rob King, Steelers play-by-play announcer, the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, we've now, as to follow through with our conversation there with Rob King.
Yeah, it was great.
Russell Wilson now 5-1 as a starter. Now Justin Fields was 4-2. Again,
they've won a lot of games this year. Yeah.
They've won. They're 9-3 as a team. Wilson now has 1,653 passing yards in his 6 games. 10 touchdown passes, another rushing. He's going to have 6 more games
to add to that. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, 5 more games to add to that.
Yes, okay.
To add to those totals. So he'll make 11 starts this year. If he can get to 3,000 yards again.
Wow. What did you say he's at now?
He's at 1,653.
Through 6, another 5. Yeah.
Close,
yeah. Probably won't throw for 414 again, but
probably. Well, they get the Bengals again.
Yeah, I guess you get to play them again.
You play the Chiefs. I mean, that maybe that's a shootout.
Yeah. Ravens' pass defense isn't glorious either.
Yeah, you might have to get into a different. Typically, what happens in conference games or division games, I should say, is if one game is high scoring, the second one is low scoring, and vice versa.
Yeah.
That just seems to be how they go. Now, Steeler-Ravens games have always gone. they've just been low scoring. But Wilson,
I'd be shocked if Week 18 is 10-7 though.
Yeah,
against the Bengals.
Every season in his career has passed for 3,000 yards. Even last year,
when he sat down.
He had 3,070 with 26 touchdown passes.
Durability's been a huge key to it, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Right.
Yesterday was the second best passing day in terms of yardage in his career.
I know.
This guy's put up a lot of big career numbers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a massive producer. I mean, through his whole career, and this is his second highest scoring or best game of his life.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to count on 400 plus every week,
but you got it in your hip pocket now.
You
can do it.
Yeah, right. It exists,
and he can do it and take care of the football.
Yeah. And my co-host on the podcast asked me, he's like, if I told you before the season started that a Steeler quarterback threw for over 400 yards in the first game in December, what would you think? I'd be like, it must have been a fluky one. Like 3 defensive backs fell down, blown coverage. Somehow you had a 90-yard catch and run.
There was none of that.
There was none of that. It was efficiency, throw after throw, take what's there, good run after catch, too. I mean, teammates always help, but it was smart, efficient football.
It was more like him playing point guard yesterday.
Yeah.
Just getting the ball to people for layups.
Yeah.
Layup.
Absolutely. This guy's, Shaq's got a great matchup in the post. I'm going to feed him over and over. I mean, whatever it is. But keeping out of negatives, I keep coming back to with him.
Yeah, to your point, the Steelers got, I think it was 6-10. They got 13 catches from their running backs.
Okay, yeah.
For almost 150 yards.
And they're all highly capable.
They got 6, they have 11, I think, 11 catches for the tight ends.
Yeah.
Again, for over 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wide receiver, there wasn't a lot of, wide receiver stuff. Pickens had 3 catches for 74 yards. Austin had 2 for 29.
This was his lowest target share with Wilson. They just didn't pump it into Pickens over and over.
Jefferson had 1 for 43.
Mm-hmm.
That was a catch and run. And Ben Skoranek had 1 for 23.
So this was a road I was going to go down with Rob, but we ran out of time, and there's a million things to talk about with him. 10 guys caught balls, and we were talking about the maturity of Wilson. And I think you can't overestimate the human element of that. If I'm Skoranek or Pruitt or Washington, and I'm out there doing the dirty work, I'm happy to be there.
Yeah.
But if I can get the ball in my hands once or twice,
you reward those
all
guys.
Right.
Yeah,
this is fun.
These guys, Ben Skoranek is out there. People are asking, why is Ben Skoranek out there instead of Mike Williams? Because Ben Skoranek is a ridiculous hard-nosed blocker.
Yes.
Not that Mike Williams can't do it, but Ben Skoranek is blocking like defensive ends.
Right.
Same thing with Van Jefferson. They're putting their nose in there.
And plus, when Austin went out, Skoranek directly replaced him as the slot.
Williams
He's a much
was out
different
there
style.
Williams might have been – Williams and Connor Hayward, I think, were like the only 2 guys who played a significant amount of snaps yesterday who didn't catch balls.
Is it time to get worried about Williams? I know this is a positive Monday after.
I'm not.
I just haven't seen separation, other than one big play.
It was a big play.
It was a very big play. But they haven't needed them. I mean, one of them was also a snow game. And, I get the circumstances, but I don't know if he's going to be a big contributor or not. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it gives you another guy, and I think he will contribute down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not concerned about that at all. I mean, this isn't a Deontay Johnson situation in Baltimore, which is really blowing up, by the way, folks.
He had 0 snaps yesterday.
0 snaps yesterday, and Bateman got hurt.
And Bateman got hurt.
And
There's
he
some
still didn't
rumblings
play.
that he wants out. And, it's not going well.
I mean, he's got 5 targets or 6 targets since he's played for them. He's got 1 catch for like 5 yards.
I'll be the first to admit, like when my phone blew up this summer, and I'm like, oh, they traded Deontay. What'd they get? I'm like, oh, I thought they'd get more than that. They got more than they should have got for him.
Dante Jackson is tied for the league lead with 5 interceptions among all cornerbacks.
He's more valuable than Johnson.
Yes.
No question. I mean, I bet the Panthers would tell you that. I bet the Ravens would tell you that. And you got more draft picks than you gave up, So be happy about it, folks.
Yeah, I think that deal. But my point with
so
all this,
bash Deontay time, but
you threw for 400 yards, and your receivers weren't the major portion of that.
Right.
It was
spreading
the other
it
guys.
around and taking what's given, and tight ends and running backs, like you said. It's great. You know, I think it's a great thing to build on going forward.
We've been waiting for Freiermuth to be a bigger part of the passing game all season long. Well, six catches on 7 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're not built like the Bengals with Chase and Higgins that you can just pump, 25 targets to a week. So how do you manufacture that? How do you make the stew out of a lot of different ingredients? Well, they're showing you how.
Yeah, if I'm future opponents, I'm looking at this game and going, well, wait a second. Pickens caught 3 passes, and they threw for 400 yards and scored 44 points?
Like if I'm the Ravens, for example, because the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton and really dedicated him to Pickens. I want to do that again. Yeah. And then if I don't, well, then they're going to throw to Pickens.
Right.
I mean, obviously. But, I do think there's a maturity, advanced quarterback, human element of, I'm going to make sure everybody gets one. Yeah. I'm going to make sure Pruitt, who's been fighting and scrapping, at least gets to touch the ball.
I also thought it was interesting, one last thing here, that one of the knocks against Wilson coming out of Denver was, well, he's a check down artist. All he wants to do is check the ball down. We threw for 400 yards yesterday, checking the ball down.
Yeah, and that's also a Peyton thing too. They're at the top of the league again to throwing the ball to running backs, which is a highly efficient manner of. It's like a handoff. 5
it is against the Bengals,
right? If you can get Najee or Warren touching the ball in front of the line of scrimmage instead of behind the line of scrimmage, great.
Yeah,
give me it all day long.
Absolutely. But let's get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is the drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And it is time, Matt, for the Fantasy Football Focus here.
All right.
And let's first take a look before we get into this week's top performers at our DFS lineup. As we sit here right now, we have 130.58 points.
Okay.
We're in the money in the contest that we are in. Now, whether we hold on to that or not, we're done. We have nobody left.
We're going to hope for not much scoring tonight.
Yeah. We had Justin Herbert in the lineup. That didn't work out. 7.98 points.
No. I mean, they scored all their points.
Give me something.
Atlanta's insane. Cousins needs benched. I mean, he was the whole reason they lost that game.
The Steelers got the right, now 36-year-old quarterback, it appears.
Yes. And the other one coming off an Achilles in New York doesn't look so great either.
Not so much.
Right.
How about
they might go to Penix.
The speculation on that the Steelers would move on from Russell Wilson. They're not going to re-sign either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, but instead they're going to turn to 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers next year.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
That's been there's been
really.
Oh yeah. That's not going to happen.
No, I do not like that idea at all.
No,
not even a little.
He's shot.
Yeah.
We have Irving in the game.
Bucky Irving.
Bucky Irving.
He's 31.6
real find. 31.6% ownership. But he got us 30.5 points.
Yeah, he's in every week. RB1, I think.
Catching the ball, rushing with the ball. 152 rushing yards in that game, 33 receiving yards.
He's legit. He's taking over that backfield. Good line. I know they played the Panthers.
That's
why he was on
That's
so
why
much.
we
grabbed him.
Yeah.
Right.
Aaron Jones only got us 10.8, but he did score a late touchdown there to get us to that 10. Only 6 receiving yards, 22 rushing yards, 3 catches.
Yeah, it's a fumble thing.
The fumble thing, yeah.
He's getting benched because of fumbles. Because, I mean, the beauty of him is he's in every down, no matter what type of guy. They still came back to win. And we got something out of him. It was looking pretty grim there for a while.
7% ownership on him at $6,500, and we didn't get our money's worth out of that.
Yeah, it was on the field enough.
Unfortunately, we started Amari Cooper last night in that game. 7.9% ownership. He was only $5,200.
He contributed to a touchdown.
He did. He had 3 catches in the snow, which was, I mean.
We didn't also know the weather was going to be that bad, or I'm sure he would not have been.
I thought about pivoting off of it, like when I got back to I was on the team flight yesterday, and we got back to Pittsburgh, and I'm like, should I look for somebody else to put in there? Because I'm watching the videos from up there all day long. I'm like, I had made my ribs hurt. I had flashbacks from last year. I'm like, really hard to throw the ball in that kind of weather. And I'm like, Cooper will
probably
do something.
I didn't think it'd be that bad at kickoff and all through the game. They didn't either. Yeah. I mean, if you looked at advanced weather, it was like, it's going to hit around 11 again.
There was no snow in downtown Buffalo.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was all. That's the thing about that kind of weather is that
it just comes off the lake.
It hits this. It hits here. It doesn't hit there. Mm-hmm. 5 minutes away, and there's nothing.
Tough to be the weatherman in Buffalo. But Allen and Cook came through. I mean, there were fantasy points.
Yeah,
right.
Nico Collins, 8 for 119, and got us the bonus for the 100 yards receiving. 22.9 points for him, 21.9% ownership. Didn't score, though.
Didn't score. Having a great year. There's some things missing with the Texans at the moment. They're a little shaky, but he's not the problem.
Ladd McConkey, who we stacked with Justin Herbert, he had a good game, even though Herbert did not.
I'm in love with Ladd McConkey.
9 for 117. So Herbert had 147 passing yards.
All to him.
And 117 of them went to Ladd McConkey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and injury issues with him now. He didn't quite finish the game, but they didn't need him to. I wouldn't have any problem going back to McConkey though.
Yeah, I loved him in the draft and wanted him to be a Steeler.
Yep.
Oh, well.
He's the only show in town for the draft.
21.1% ownership for him. We started T.J. Hawkinson, 18.4% ownership on him. 3 catches for 28 yards, so he got us 5.8 points.
Yeah, that's a problem. He looked really good coming into that game, too, and kind of spread it around with Minnesota.
Brian Thomas Jr. was our flex. We got 18.7 out of him. He was started by 22.8% of lineups. 76 receiving yards, 11 rushing yards, 4 catches, and a touchdown. Nice game by him.
Cheap shot knocked his quarterback out early, too. So that was mostly Mac Jones.
Right. And we had the Colts defense at $2,800. They were 11.4% ownership, and they got us 6 points.
I thought they were done better than that. Okay.
But overall,
that's not terrible.
Not a bad week.
Right.
130.58 usually gets you on the edge of the money or in the money. Right now, again, we're in the money, and we'll see what happens tonight.
You mentioned, there's not a lot of guys playing tonight that are probably in lineups. I'm sure there's a Javonte Williams.
Yeah, a lot of people are in the contest we're in are already done.
Sutton, Judy, maybe a Nix or Winston, but there's not a ton of options out there to knock us out.
Yeah, but there's some.
Yeah, maybe the defenses.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Moving on to this week's top performers at the quarterback position. Well, Russell Wilson was number one with 414 yards. 3 touchdown passes, an interception, and the 2 sacks that were credited to on his account as well.
I know we do waiver wire stuff Tuesday, but he's not going to be on waiver wires after this week.
I wouldn't think.
Is he a top 12 every week guy? I'm not sure I'm there yet on him from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, he's not
do worse.
He's not running at all, but there's some other quarterbacks. Like, again, if you were counting on the Trevor Lawrences or the Anthony Richardsons of the league, Russell Wilson might not be the worst.
I think he's right there with like a Tua.
Yeah.
He throws a lot, doesn't run much, but efficient and put up numbers. Touchdowns.
If you look at it now, he's almost averaging 2 touchdowns per game.
Mm-hmm.
The passing yards per game, he's second in the league with 271 passing yards per game.
Yeah.
The only guy who has more is Burrow.
Because they throw all the time, and he's really good. He's got 2 great receivers, sure.
And, I understand that, they've played some lower scoring games, but he had 270 in the snow last week against Cleveland and a touchdown.
No, I think
you would take that.
I think 2.25 plus is going to be the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the odds makers haven't caught up yet. I've been watching, some of the over/under props on him, and it's still like between 225 and 235 a week.
Okay.
Well, he's pretty much topping that every week.
Yeah. These upcoming games are going to be a little bit different script than the Bengals, of course, but I think he's highly fantasy relevant.
Yeah. Tua Tagovailoa, 365 and 2 touchdowns. That loss to Green Bay, they looked horrendous.
I thought so too.
I
didn't think it'd be that bad.
They couldn't be watching that game in Buffalo last night and going, "Oh boy,
I'm excited about that."
Yeah, let's go play in the snow again.
Right, and even like in a game like that, where you're not the most physical team, you know how you're built. With all respect to Hill and Waddle and Johnny Smith gets more targets than those guys, and Achane, even the Packers skill guys were better than your skill guys. And in that game, it's like even our best thing was second best in that game. I don't like how they're built.
By the way, we finished in the money with our Thursday lineup as well.
Oh, okay. We didn't convene on Friday, right?
Yeah. Aiden O'Connell had 340 and 2 touchdowns in that Friday game against Kansas City.
I actually think he played pretty well. I'm not a fan. I would never say, boy, he can be my starter. But if I'm the Raiders, I'm like, I still want to draft someone and bring him back. I want to keep developing.
And they should have won that game.
They should have won that game. Yeah. Clearly should have won the game.
Kansas City's got warts. Again, you letting Aiden O'Connell throw for 340 against you?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm sure you're saying this because they're on the horizon.
Yeah,
right.
Like people saying the Steelers can't possibly beat Kansas City on Christmas Day. I'm like, have you watched the Chiefs?
I was saying, in the power ranking world, Kansas City and Pittsburgh shouldn't be that far off tomorrow.
They really should.
I mean, it really should be a spot or two away from each other.
Yeah.
That's how they're playing.
Yeah. Burrow had 309 and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, was sacked 4 times, lost 2 fumbles. So there was some good, there was some bad, but he's all they got.
He's all they got.
And for fantasy, he has to do that every week.
I know.
Every week.
So real quick, since it's a fantasy segment, McCaffrey and Mason are both going into reserve.
Wow. Isaac Guerrero, welcome.
I guess. Man, I mean, you talk about a fantasy hit.
It's blowing up. And so, again, Russell Wilson or Brock Purdy at this point.
That's same tier.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where he's at, yeah.
Purdy's the weapons are gone. Trent Williams, unfortunately for him, and I feel bad for him, the news was just announced today, he and his wife lost a child.
Yeah.
And
he's been hurt.
And it's just not their year.
I think Purdy's below the Tuas and Wilsons.
Yeah.
I just don't trust what's around him right now.
No, not at all. Mahomes had 306, but just 1 touchdown. Got sacked 5 times in that game against
Tackle
the Raiders.
Problems
Their tackles are awful.
It really is. And Steelers pass rush is going to do well against that group, I think.
And if the officials are actually calling the illegal formation stuff for being in the flying V and not allowing the tackles to get the early jump, they're screwed.
Oh, because they're the worst in the league about it.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah, every play they're getting the early start.
I don't think it's fantasy relevant, but I did hear Marquise Brown is going to come back week 17-ish playoffs.
That's fine,
that's
but
good
if
for them.
They still can't block.
No,
it doesn't help the blocking at all. Bryce Young,
he's playing well.
A touchdown.
I'm happy for him.
He's playing well.
He's going to be the starter next year and should be. I mean, he's earning that.
Is he fantasy relevant right now, though? Would you rather start him over a Brock Purdy?
He'd be right. I would say he'd be right behind Tua and Wilson. So in the Purdy lane,
in that range.
Yeah.
Because he's doing this every week because their defense stinks. He has to throw the football.
And they want him to, I think.
And the receivers aren't bad.
The receivers aren't bad, no.
Thielen's making some plays.
The young guys are fine.
Yeah. Jordan Love had 274 and 2 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, 260, a touchdown and 2 interceptions.
Yeah. Not quite what you want for Murray. I thought he'd have a little bit bigger year.
Yeah. Caleb Williams came in 9th this week with 256 and 3 touchdowns in that loss to Detroit.
Yeah, and he runs too.
And then Cousins.
He was terrible. 245,
no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, only 1 sack. He's just getting rid of the football because he didn't want to get hit.
Yeah, and he's thrown it to the other team with bad interceptions. They're nobody's fault but his. I mean, he's playing really poorly right now. I think there's a chance Penix finishes the season.
Yeah. We did see Jaden Daniels bounce back a little bit this week.
Offense.
25 of 30 for 206 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, fire him up.
He's still running.
Yeah, I think he's the top 5 guy every week right now.
Yeah, so keep that in mind, and we'll see what happens with the Offensive Rookie of the Year tonight.
Yeah.
Big game with that with Knicks. As we turn the chapter into December here, most of the time we'd have 4 or 5 100-yard rushers.
Mm-hmm.
This week there's 9.
Is there? Okay.
So you had leading the way Bucky Irving, 152 and a touchdown, 25 carries, which is promising.
I love that. Yeah, that's the key.
Rico Dowdell.
He looks good.
22 for 112 and a touchdown.
In our league, I got him as just a throw-in because I'm like, give me any back to make the deal work. And I'm like, I'm starting you now. Right, yeah. He's good.
Kamara had 23 for 112, didn't score, and now Taysom Hill's done
out
for the year.
I actually think Valdez-Scantling is kind of important in that offense by default.
Like scoring a touchdown every week.
Yeah, him and Westbrook-Akine are breaking all the trends in the world. But Kamara's still the same.
Yeah.
I
don't know if he's going to, I'm not worried about next year.
No.
But,
right.
Yeah.
I think he's holding on by a string, but,
James Cook, only 14 carries last night, but 107 and a touchdown. They actually were kind of leaning on Ray Davis in that game a little bit.
Bit. I thought Cook was one of the few guys that navigated the snow extremely well.
Yeah.
Some guys just do it better than others, mutters, But Davis, I want both those guys on my team.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley, 23 for 107 and a touchdown.
Quiet and then not.
Yeah.
It
only takes one.
Yeah.
It's like I can remember, the Steelers playing Emmitt Smith, and they hold him to, 50 yards on his first 20 carries. And then he breaks loose for a 54-yard, touchdown run. It's like, well.
So I own A.J. Brown in the league. Devontae Smith wasn't out there, and you're happy with A.J. Brown, and Goddard's okay. But this is more of a Ravens note than anything. They threw the ball like 5 times in the second half.
Yeah.
They are the run-heaviest team. Everyone talks about the Ravens and Steelers being the run-heaviest team in the league. Eagles are more so.
They're running the ball passing the ball 23% of the time in the second half of games.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I'm like,
it's
the only team, they're the only team throwing the ball less in the second half of games than the Steelers, who are like 43%.
Okay.
They're even 20% less than that.
Even 20%. I mean, a lot of it's with the lead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's against the Ravens. They're supposed to have the bad pass defense, good run defense. I mean, he just grinded it out.
Yeah.
Good. That O-line was really impressive, too.
Kyron Williams, 15 for 104 and a touchdown.
But Corum got a bigger role than ever.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that.
He's like one fumble away from getting benched.
That could be 50-50 before you know it.
Yeah.
Late in the season, fresh legs.
Brian Robinson, 16 for 103 and a touchdown. And it's interesting because,
they ran the ball well.
They ran the ball well, and
I know you're talking about.
Eckler went to IR.
Eckler's on IR. Is it Rodriguez? Is that the rookie?
Yeah.
He started to really step up as the game went on, too, more so than McNichols.
Yeah.
I snuck McNichols in a lineup. That there's a deep league, and there's not much there.
Yeah. Chris Rodriguez ended up with 13 for 94 in that game and a touchdown.
Game, yeah.
So
keep an eye on it.
He'll be a hot fantasy pickup this week.
Guess we'll have to talk about him tomorrow. If he's the true number 2 there.
I mean, if you look at it, Robinson got 16 carries. He got 13. Mm-hmm. So,
but how much is that as garbage time and a blowout win?
But when you put up 94 yards, the coaching staff takes notice.
Yeah, I kind of like them coming out of school.
Maybe
we
got to play this guy a little bit. Yeah,
yeah. I think he's going to be the 2.
Bijan Robinson, 26 for 102 and a touchdown and a loss.
It's
really
every week.
Solid.
Yeah, the problem in Atlanta is not the skill guys.
Him.
It's not London. It's not any of those dudes. Pitts actually has been.
He's
right. Pitts and
cuttable.
Cousins are.
Yeah,
and the defense is bad.
Yeah, Pitts is definitely cuttable now.
Yeah, I would say so.
And the last 100-yard rusher, Joe Mixon, 20 for 101 and a touchdown. That's kind of what he's been doing every week.
Yeah, absolutely. They have some issues, but he's not one of them.
Jonathan Taylor just missed at number 10 there, 25 for 96. Rodriguez was then up at 13 for 94. David Montgomery, 21 for 88. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 for 87.
Super explosive, right? Didn't score, but I mean, he could have had a much bigger day.
You know who didn't score yesterday? Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Now, they threw him the ball a few times more than what they usually do.
Yeah.
But 19 for 82, and it's like if he doesn't score a touchdown.
Or break the 80-yarder or whatever. Yeah. He doesn't churn out 6 yards of carry every time. It's in clumps. And if you can stop him like the Steelers did and like those guys did, it goes a long way. Real quick on Taylor with the Colts. This should shock nobody, but his receptions with Richardson in the game are dropping rapidly.
Yeah.
Flacco would throw it to him. Richardson is not going to throw it.
Not going to throw him at all.
No.
Mentioned the situation with McCaffrey. He's hurt.
Done for the year.
Done for the year.
Yeah.
So is Jordan Mason.
Yes.
His backup, who did well earlier in the year. So now you're looking at Isaac Guerendo, potentially.
But I'm putting in money for him.
He'll be a hot
they don't play
pickup.
In the snow every week,
For Vegas, Sincere McCormick had 12 for 64.
I know. I mean, they're just searching. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this time of year, just because you've never heard of these dudes, fresh legs goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned Ray Davis, 11 for 63 and a touchdown.
I could see him being really relevant in the playoffs, too.
Yeah. Again, you want to talk about, he's not been overused to this point. He's a tough, hard-nosed runner.
Tough guy to run. Tough guy to get down.
Let's take a look at the receiving options this week. Only 6 100-yard receivers this week.
A big story of the fantasy season, and people write articles, I'm sure, all offseason, is the receivers that everyone thought were safe, not so much this year. I mean, a lot of busts.
Those first-round guys, really, of the first-round guys, Chase and Jefferson have been the only two that have
lived up to their billing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, I'm sure Lamb's fine.
And Jefferson's gone like 6-7 weeks now without a touchdown. He's still been.
And 2 weeks ago, he had a really down week.
Yeah.
And, like, Tyreek's hurt you. And there's been some injuries to, like, Diggs and Godwin, who, Godwin was good. I mean, like, the receivers weren't great. And some of the old guys got old on us.
Yeah. Brock Bowers, 140 receiving yards on 10 catches. And
he's tight end.
A touchdown.
Right? I mean, McBride's really good, too. He just never scores.
Yeah. Nico Collins, 8 for 119, didn't score. Mike Evans, 8 for 118 and a touchdown. He needs I think he needs to average just over 100 yards to get to 1,000 yards for the season.
But they are invested in doing so.
I think they're going to try to do it.
Yeah. Oh, they don't even hiding it.
Yeah.
And he looks great. He made an unbelievable catch. He didn't get old on us.
No, he'll just continue to do what he does and be big.
Player. What a great career.
Lad McConkey, 9 for 117, didn't score, but nice stay there.
Just monitor the injury, but he is absolutely here to stay.
Jonnu Smith, 10 for 113, and didn't score. And I'll give you credit. You were on Jonnu Smith in the preseason.
Deep sleeper.
Then you cut him.
Yeah, I know. But I own him in a bunch of dynasty leagues where I got him for nothing. They love him, and I think he's a top 5 tight end right now.
He's been more valuable than their 2 wide receivers.
Absolutely, right. I mean, he puts up more points than Tyreek.
And then Parker Washington with Jacksonville, the last 100-yard receiver, 6 for 103 and a touchdown.
He's somebody I've been stashing in dynasty leagues, too. I kind of liked him at Penn State. I think he can do some of the Christian Kirk things after the catch, tough, inside out, good with the ball in his hands, just raw.
Yeah.
But if you're those guys, play him like crazy. Play him and Thomas like crazy.
The guys who just missed, the old guys, Adam Thielen, 8 for 99 and a touchdown.
He's probably out there.
I would think
in some
so.
Leagues, yeah. You could probably do worse.
Jefferson had 7 for 99 but didn't score.
They'll come around.
DJ Moore, 8 for 97 and a touchdown.
Okay. Getting more involved with the new coordinator.
Yeah. Jacoby Myers, 6 for 97, didn't score.
Quick Bears note: they bumped up the coordinator, right, to be the head guy.
He's not a head guy.
I wonder if that hurts the offense a little bit. Like, you were a coordinator for a week. Or 2.
Before that, you were a passing game coordinator.
Right. Now you're in charge of the whole team.
Now you're in charge of the whole team.
Just when the offense looked better. I don't know if it'll stay that way.
Trey McBride had 12 for 96.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what he does. Didn't score. Ray McLeod, 4 for 95.
Always a McBride's made.
Yeah.
That was my little joke on.
Little Ray there.
Yeah.
4 for 95. DeAndre Hopkins had 4 for 90. Drake London, 9 for 86. Again, the Falcons' skill position guys.
They're as good as ever.
Put up points.
They look great.
Tommy Tremble had 5 for 77 yesterday.
I always liked him. He's on the field quite a bit. Just keep an eye on it. Yeah.
Keep an eye on it because the other kid's hurt. Sanders is hurt.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's out for the year. What his status
and Sanders
is,
was getting the
that
point
they wanted to feature him.
Fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're throwing the ball.
Oh, their goal is obvious. They're building for next year to build a passing game. And I don't know if it'll hurt Chuba or not, but Chuba didn't get any catches. Brooks started to take over some of the third down.
Chuba lost the fumble at the end.
Yeah. But they got skill dudes. I mean, like, they have an offense.
But they're throwing to the tight end, so Tremble's definitely somebody that I would it might be a DFS play right now.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah. Looking at anybody else on there that sticks out that is not a household name, that's pretty much it. Everybody else is kind of who you would expect. Tucker Kraft had 6 for 78 sitting on my bench.
Yeah. Good player, too. Though. Yeah.
And, very useful sitting on my bench. But anyways, those are the top performers of the week. We got a lot more to get to here as we wrap up the show here over the next 40 minutes. Let's get to that. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And thank goodness, Matt, we'll be back all 5 days this week.
Yeah, it's nice to have a normal week.
A normal week.
Juggling. Let's do this show at midnight and this show here. I mean, I like this. I know where I'm going to be all the time until Christmas week.
If you have the Steelers, their app,
yes,
you don't have to worry about
when
you guys
do
the show.
Worry,
it just
listeners.
automatically goes right to your phone.
Right.
So
we've done some juggling the last 2 weeks.
We've juggled a little bit because of all the crazy games and the schedule and everything in the holiday.
Yeah.
But you can also listen to us Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 on the, or you can watch the show, I should say, on the podcast network on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. Leave comments and You've been checking comments pretty regularly.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yep.
And so
quite popular. I'm
yes.
sure today's will be quite popular. After wins, it seems to get a couple more hits
seems
for
to get
some
a little
reason.
bit more of a bump.
Yeah.
Last week was a little sketchy because, well, we just weren't on the whole time, and I get it. So looking at the current playoff race in the AFC, Matt.
Yeah. Shaping up pretty solid here.
Kansas City is still number one. They've clinched a playoff spot.
Okay, they're in.
They're in.
I think they clinch the division if they beat the Chargers next week.
Next week, yes, because the Chargers are 8-4. They're 11-1.
Okay.
Buffalo has clinched the division title already.
I didn't see that
at
coming.
10-2.
It's amazing from my preseason view of how much different the Dolphins and especially the Jets are this late.
Jets are awful.
They're really terrible. That's another team I do not want to be GM.
Will New York just please, New York?
Do we have one good team?
One good team?
Yeah.
Combine your teams. Have just one team. And I still don't know that you would have a team that would.
Who would you rather be in charge of this offseason?
Neither.
I think I'd rather have the Giants. I'd rather have no quarterback than Rodgers.
You might have no quarterback.
I'd rather
yeah.
go look for one than be stuck with him. You know?
I don't know that you're stuck with him.
I don't know if he'll be back. Don't get me wrong, but who knows? Both teams have some pieces, but man.
Yeah, the Steelers still sitting in that third spot now at 9-3, but now have a 2-game lead in the loss column over the Ravens because the Ravens went out and laid an egg last night.
Huge. And Ravens, as well as 5 other teams, have an upcoming bye here. That's the end of the bye.
Yeah.
So you're going to be, no matter what happens in Steelers-Browns, you will be in first place a week from now, no matter what.
And I'm just going to jump ahead here. The Browns are not sweeping the Steelers this season, so
coming. You know this better than I do. I mean, they're playing in Mile High tonight. They're going to get home at 6 a.m. Cleveland time.
Yes,
something like that, and then have to be here on a short week.
Yes,
it's pretty easy to think about your golf reservations.
Especially, I think they'll keep it within the 5.5 points tonight.
I think it'll be a close game tonight. Yeah,
but I still think they lose.
I do too. Tough place to play. That's a physical team too.
Yeah,
I mean they're going to get beaten up on a little bit.
Yeah, so
but I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, Steelers 9-3 now, and still in the 3 spot. Houston kind of righted the ship a little bit.
I don't know.
They won a game.
I know they've been finding ways to win.
Yeah,
but I think you're pretty happy if you're the 5 seed.
Yeah, they're 8-5 now in the 4 spot. The Chargers now back into the 5 spot because Baltimore lost.
That's substantial. I would much rather go to Houston than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're 8-4. The Ravens are 8-5. Denver is 7-5 right now. Denver can move into a tie with the Ravens
with a win.
I don't know. They haven't played yet, have they?
No, tonight.
No, Baltimore and Denver.
Oh.
Yeah, I assume. Have they played yet this season?
I think so.
Maybe they don't play this season.
Yeah.
They did. They won. The Ravens won 41-10.
Oh, yeah.
That was
quite a while ago, right?
Yeah, that was in Baltimore. So they have the tiebreaker over the Broncos. So even if Denver wins tonight, Denver will still be the 7 seed.
But the Chargers have the tiebreaker over the Ravens. No, other way around.
Other way around.
Okay. So
yeah.
Ravens are in the best shape of the current wild card teams, and they're the best team of the 3.
The Colts are still 6-7, so they're technically still in it.
I mean, considering Miami and Cincinnati lost, the Colts are the only one that could put a wrench in this mix.
Yeah, Miami's now 5-7.
I think it's over.
They've got 2 more cold weather games coming, at least.
Yeah.
They still have to go to New York for the Jets, and they got to go to New England and play the Patriots.
Could be favored in both, but not their style of play.
Yeah,
right.
If snow is a factor, I don't like them.
I don't like them either,
even against those teams. Then you got
they're pretty close.
The Bengals at 4-8. They're done.
I mean, another conference loss ended it for them.
Yeah, they're 2-6. They're 2-6 in the conference. The only team that's worse, the only 2 teams that are worse than that are the Patriots 2-7 and the Raiders at 2-8.
Yeah, 6 division losses or conference losses for
like Miami's 4-4, the Colts are 5-4, Denver's 3-4, Baltimore's 5-4.
Yeah. So what's the Bengals record period? 4 wins.
They're 4-8. They would have to win out.
They'd have to win out to get to 9-8.
Yeah,
and they still weren't going to win any tiebreakers.
Right, they're going to lose all those tiebreakers. So really, you're down to basically 9 teams for 7 spots. Although, mathematically, if you look at it, the Browns, for whatever reason, according to ESPN's FPI, still have a better chance
than the Bengals. I assume it's just easier schedule, but fewer conference losses.
They would have to win tonight. They're 3-8. They'd have to win tonight, then win next week in Pittsburgh.
Oh, they got to go 9-8.
They got to win in Baltimore. They're not.
They're not.
They're done.
I'm shocked that they're even being mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got the Jets at 3-9. They're done. The Titans at 3-9. They're done. The Patriots are 3-10. Jacksonville's 2-10. The Raiders are 2-10. Raiders.
Jacksonville was the first pick of the draft right now.
Yeah. The Raiders in New England are both eliminated officially.
I'm surprised the Jags aren't.
With over a month left to play in the season, you're eliminated.
They're eliminated already.
Yeah.
There's some dismal teams.
The only team in the NFC that's eliminated is the Giants at 2-10. This is what I'm talking about with New York.
I think they have the second overall.
The two New York teams are combined 5-19.
It's bad. I mean, I'm sure
5-19. You got two teams, and if they combine their wins, they still wouldn't be in the playoff race in either conference.
I mean, I'm sure the league office and commissioner doesn't love that. I mean, these teams that are in the biggest market have become laughingstock.
They're jokes
for a long time now.
Yeah, it's not
a long time.
Not recent. This isn't
several
seasons
long time
now.
since Parcells.
Yeah. But anyways, that loss that the Ravens got yesterday. Now it was a non-conference loss because it was the Eagles, but that's huge. They're 8-5.
That's huge.
They were favored in that game.
Yep.
I thought that the wrong team was favored in the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game. I thought the wrong team was favored.
I placed two bets yesterday, and they were both on the PA teams, and yay for me. And I thought the same thing. I thought these lines are skewed.
Yeah.
Because the better team is getting points.
Yeah.
And I know they're not in their buildings, but they have great O-line. They travel well. Philly's a very good football team. Yeah. They got weapons galore. Their defense is so much better. And the kicker doesn't miss 3 field goals a game.
That's the thing. That's where I was going next here. So Justin Tucker has now missed 10 kicks this season.
Yeah.
Harbaugh's asked about it after the game last night. He asked about it again today at his press conference. And he's like, we've talked about it. Our scouting department doesn't think there's anybody else out there who's better than Justin Tucker. There are Kansas City's been picking guys up off the waiver wire and playing them, including Matthew Wright last week.
Yeah, he's better than Tucker right now. It's not the normal situation.
There are 30 kickers currently on teams in the league who are better than Justin Tucker right now. Might be 31.
Maybe he has a Boz groin something all year that they know about that they're not publicizing.
If that's the case, put him on IR.
That's what I mean. Like, he's not the normal kicker. You can't just cut him.
No.
Yeah, I mean that's not. You would burn bridges, and he deserves better than that. I mean, 20 other kickers are having the season. They're on the street.
Right.
That guy's not, and you can't do that. You are married to Justin Tucker, at least for this year. But a dirty little analogy I've been using is, yeah, you're married to him, but your spouse is cheating on you with the entire neighborhood and just ruining the household. You know, I mean, how can you trot him out there in a clutch situation, which is every game going forward if you're those guys, especially in the playoffs, and feel good about
trusting it?
Yeah. It's a real problem.
He's missing extra points, too, and those are gimmies.
It's a real problem. I mean, it would almost be better to a hangnail or something and put him on IR and just worry about it in the offseason. Hey, Justin, maybe you should retire, or get healed.
So as things currently stand in the AFC, the Steelers have now scored 296 points. They've given up 224. Obviously, the defensive numbers took a little bit of a hit yesterday.
Well, they both went up quite a bit.
Yeah. But that 224 is the same number of points that Buffalo has allowed.
Okay. So, I mean, they were at the bottom of the best in the league going into that game.
The 296 points is 7 more points than Kansas City has scored this season.
That doesn't surprise me. Not even a little bit.
And yet when you go into these games in Cincinnati on the road, I get it, against a 4-7 team, 4-8, whatever they were, you're an underdog in that game. And that just, to me, that was disrespectful.
And even just citing those numbers you mentioned, I get it saying, boy, the Steelers had a good season. No way they can go to Buffalo or Kansas City and win the playoffs. I would pick the Bills or Chiefs today, but I like their chances a heck of a lot better than last year's version or any of the versions we've seen lately. I mean, they can play these games in the 30s now.
I'm going to go on record now the Steelers will beat Kansas City on Christmas Day.
I don't think Kansas City is going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I don't think so either.
I'm not even sure they're the second best team in the conference. They probably are, but they got problems right now.
Yeah.
And I don't see them being corrected overnight.
I think Buffalo right now is the best team in the AFC.
Clearly. I think by far, to be honest with you. I'm not sure who number 2 is. Probably the Chiefs.
I think it's Pittsburgh.
I get it. Like on Power Rank Day tomorrow, I think they should be right next to each other.
I mean, I get it that the Chiefs have one loss, and you tip your cap to that.
That's great.
They should have lost that game to the Raiders.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that wasn't anything they did great.
No.
At least they blocked a kick the week before or whatever to
but
make a play.
This is how they're living, though.
Not exactly.
Week in and week out.
Yeah. I do hate the narrative that the NFL loves the Chiefs, and they're just getting lucky.
They're 11-1, and their point differential is plus 54.
Do you think Buffalo ends up with a 1 seed?
I think they do. Because I think
they're better.
I think the Steelers beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day, and I think that could be the difference. The Chiefs also still have the Chargers at home.
Yeah.
They'll be favored in that game, but the Chargers...
that's going to be a 3-point game.
Yeah.
Whoever's favorite, whatever the number is, I'm taking the Chargers.
Then they're at Cleveland.
Sneaky.
You never know what the weather. It's on December.
The weather, right?
On December 15th in Cleveland.
Yeah. That could be first 1 to 12.
Then they have the Texans on a short week.
Right.
6 days later.
It's also a short week for the Texans.
Then they got to come here on a short week. 4 days later.
It's also a short week for the Steelers. That's that weird Christmas Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Steelers thing.
Then they're at Denver on January 5th.
Might be weather in that game.
Might be some weather in that game.
Yeah.
They got some weather games coming up here against some good defenses, too.
So there's some decent teams there.
Texans can rush the passer. The Steelers can rush the passer. The Broncos can rush the passer.
Oh, yeah.
The Chargers can get it. Everybody left on their schedule can get after that offensive line.
You got Garrett. You got some dudes. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And how are they blocking those with those tackles?
Right.
They benched their starting left tackle in that game.
I know. They're really searching. Really searching.
And they still... Crosby's not even lining up over the left tackle. He's going against the right tackle the entire game because
he can win that one too.
He can win
that
one.
The other guys can win the other one.
And the other guys are beating their left tackle so badly they bench him.
And they're not finding explosive plays, and they're still shuffling receivers. And I think they want to keep Kelsey on a pitch count, and they're really looking for a second pass rusher other than Chris Jones too. And no one's really stepping up. They have some secondary injuries. They're still the Chiefs. No one's crying for them.
No, they still got Mahomes. They still got Andy Reid. Yeah. So you give them respect, but the way they are currently playing,
they're definitely behind the Bills.
Yes,
no question in my mind.
Yes, and I would put them right now behind the Steelers. I understand the Steelers had a stinker last week in Cleveland on a short week.
They still won 5 out of 6.
They've now 6 out of 7.
6 out of 7, yeah, pretty good.
They're 9-3, and they're still not getting that kind of. It's not the respect that I think that they. Again, to me, the fact that you had an 8-3 team against a 4-win team that was an underdog in a game.
Yeah, I bet
an 8-win team or an 8-3 team that had won 14 out of the last 16 games in Cincinnati, and they were underdogs in that game.
Yeah, I bet the national media that looks at all 32 teams. 32 equally. It doesn't focus on the Steelers like we do. Might change their tune after that game. Like, I didn't think they could win a super high-scoring shootout type game. Like, they have that that club in their bag. They haven't had that club in a long time.
Not a long, but people are still looking at this team as if it's the team from 2023 or the team from 2022. Well, because some of that there's some of that Russell Wilson stuff out there. Well, he's even I'm reading through some different things today.
Or even Arthur Smith just wants to run the ball.
Yeah,
right.
And the narrative was, after an early interception for a touchdown, Russell Wilson was really good. That interception for a touchdown wasn't on him.
He really made no mistakes.
He didn't make any mistakes in that game. He was. Again, it was almost as flawless a performance as I've seen a quarterback have.
Yeah, it was very, very clean. And again, that ball comes out. He doesn't know Pickens is falling. I mean, that's a timing route.
Again, he's throwing that as he's coming out of his break.
Whether it's a penalty or not, that's not on Wilson.
No question.
Right.
The ball was coming out.
And it should have been a penalty.
Should have been a penalty. So, I mean, I just think that this Steelers team is built a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. These guys are feeling it. You see the bounce back. They could have easily lost that game last week. We talked about all the ways that they could lose that game in that situation. You go down, you have the early interception, and it gets returned for a touchdown. You're like, well, here we go.
A desperate, talented team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was a very impressive win and showed toughness, mental toughness. They always show physical toughness, but mental toughness of we're fine. I got a kick out of reading, part of your article, but a lot of the guys, I guess, post-game interviews were talking about how confident Wilson was in the huddle, more so than ever even. Just like, we got this, it's fine. Like he's really calmed in and has an influence over the whole offense and whole team in a really strong manner.
Yeah, and so some of that, I think, goes with the disrespect, goes back to the disrespect of Wilson to a large degree.
Oh, sure. I think also, we said this all summer, that I think people overreacted to his 2 years in Denver. I'm sure he'll be the first to tell you that he was not thrilled with what he did or how that all went, of course. But a super talented, established, proud, athlete is not going to go out that way. No. If they still have something left, you're going to get every bit of it. And the environment here is so much better.
Just so much better.
So much better. The fit,
And I
that
think,
was destined to fail from the start.
Yeah. I think Mike Tomlin's doing a great job of pushing the right buttons with this team. And, yeah, you're going to have stumbles along the way. There's not going to be a team in the league, I think, to me, that finishes with less than – like Detroit's hanging on. They're 11-1, but they're kind of running on fumes right now.
This past game wasn't as strong.
The injuries are starting to pile up. Nobody's going to finish with less than 2-3 losses probably.
Probably not. Right.
These teams are going to lose games along the way because that's just the way it goes in the NFL.
And I'm not excusing it away, but if they're in Cleveland on a Thursday night next year, I'm going to pick the Browns.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
And if they're in Cleveland on a Thursday night next year again,
it's time.
I'm going to wonder, what the hell's going on in the league office
Mr.
here?
Rooney might have to make a call and be like, hey, Raj.
How about one down here? If we're going to do this on Thursday night, why don't we do it in our place once?
At least once in a while would be nice. Yeah.
Would be okay.
Tough situation.
Yeah. Let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back to finish up the show right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, Matt, lots of stuff happening here across the league. John Harbaugh, very coy about the what's going on with Deontay Johnson in Baltimore. Didn't play a snap yesterday, even though Rashad Bateman got hurt in that game, and he was active.
You say he has 2 catches as a Raven?
He has 1.
1, and that was trade deadline.
For 5 yards. Yeah.
I think the league has told us that they're not willing to give up much for him. What they think of him. If he gets cut, will somebody grab him? The Ravens aren't using him. If he's a distraction,
I could see a team like maybe Tampa Bay that's
not bad.
Godwin is out, and maybe you need another weapon. You're now tied for first place in your division. You want to get that finishing kick, but
I don't think the market's going to be real rich for him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
San Fran with their injuries, or
San Fran might be done though. With McCaffrey and Mason both going on IR.
Into Trent Williams' situation.
It's not looking great.
Bosa's banged up.
It's not their year.
It's not their year. It's a Super Bowl hangover and a lot of bad luck, and the league's tough, I don't think Kansas City would be in the market. Chargers?
Maybe.
He sure doesn't fit the Harbaugh persona, though.
No, he's not going to block.
That's kind of why he's not here,
Yeah.
I think they're looking for certain type of guys.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it plays out here. What'd you think of the hit by Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair on?
I thought it was very dirty.
Lawrence? Extremely dirty.
Yeah, I feel for those guys. This is not Lawrence related. This is a much bigger conversation. Mahomes is always guilty of it, where it's not the Pickett fake slide, but sometimes people look like they're going to slide.
I thought it was
and then
similar
they don't.
Caleb Williams along the sideline with Jack Campbell on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah. I think the league has a problem with that.
He was ticked off about the hit. I didn't have a problem with Jack Campbell's hit on him because you're running back at that point.
You're running back.
And you're kind of slowing up to try to do the Mahomes little juke thing there. And he hits you. He goes low and hits you in the legs. You're a runner.
I think the competition committee has to create a penalty for fake sliding. And I know that's hairy, but and we're protecting quarterbacks here, but defensive backs and linebackers really have a tough chore. This, I thought, was just flat out
when
dirty.
the guy's sliding and you come in and hit him in the head.
Yeah, I think this was just flat out dirty.
And you drive with the forearm and the whole thing. Like, no, that can't
And
happen.
Shair's had a few of those kind of instances this year. And I really like the Miko Ryans, but they're like the least disciplined team in the league and taking penalties left and right. Second-year head coach might be like, well, maybe I got a little too lenient on the guys or whatever. I mean, something in the building's not right there, you know?
Yeah. That would have been one of, like, the officials should just let the
skirmish happen, kind of like hockey. Let it
go ahead and kick the crap out of him a little bit.
Yeah. I wonder if Lawrence plays again. I mean, because he was really questionable.
Yeah, he
for
was
this one.
very questionable for that game, and
I was under the understanding.
I wonder if Al-Shir plays again this year.
I bet we get a suspension.
Because to your point, this isn't the first time he's done something like that.
Right. He's a very aggressive player. I like his style of play, but that's dirty.
Yeah.
From what I understand, Lawrence, they have nothing to play for, but realizes I'm the leader of this team. I want to be the guy. Respectable stuff.
Yeah.
You know, get back out there and try to build something for next year. You got these young receivers. That might be a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll roll the dice with Thomas and Ingram, and
the history though is just not in your favor.
It's one of those teams, like the Jets, or they don't win many games.
But yeah, so I think the Texans are on a bye this week.
Are they?
Yeah.
I don't think they've had it yet. Right?
And then they'll have 4 games left when he comes back. Wouldn't surprise me if Al-Shir is.
You think he might get all of them?
I think he gets all of them.
I was thinking 2, but maybe you can't set that trend. Especially with quarterbacks.
No, maybe he gets. Maybe there's an appeal and he gets reduced.
Yeah.
But that you can't have guys taking shots at quarterbacks like that.
To the head, and the optics are bad.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a very bad,
vicious blow.
Yeah, it was.
Like even if he thought Lawrence was still, there's nothing there that he can tell me that he would tell me that he's.
I know. I feel for defenders in that instance because I'm not just going to let them get 5 extra yards, but that was over the top.
I mean, and I'll be honest. Back in the early, or late 2010s and all that stuff, I was one of the people like defending the James Harrisons of the world. And things
sure.
Because the things that they were now being penalized for had been legal at the start of the season.
That was a tough time to be a defender where they changed the rules on you.
Yeah, in the middle of a season.
Middle of the season. And we've been tackling this way forever.
But this has been now. What are we? 15 years now. Since these rules have been in effect, you can't do that.
Yeah,
and everybody knows it.
And everybody knows it. And you've been in basically your whole lifetime. If you're these young 20-year-olds or whatever, know that that's not how we play football anymore. Like I was the same way. Like when they eliminated the crackback Hines Ward type block, I was like, oh come on, that's the only time they get a chance. But it's a dirty. I mean, it's a dangerous play. It's a very dangerous play.
Yeah.
Okay, we all know that now.
Yeah. That one's completely dangerous. Again, but the Caleb Williams thing, I got no problem with it.
No,
he's calling it a cheap shot. No, it's not a cheap shot. You're a runner in that situation.
You're a runner and you're acting as one. You could still slide if you want.
And if you look at the play, Campbell comes in and hits him in the hip, in the thigh hip area. He didn't go for his knee
or his head.
Right.
Heads are going to be is the big thing, no question. Yeah. So
you can step out of bounds. Yeah, the sideline was right there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I was referencing the fake slide, like in the middle of the field, like the Pickett is the obvious crazy example. But I also don't love Lamar does this a ton. Slows up like he's going to go out of bounds, and then and
gets 10 more yards.
Right? Like, what do you want me to do here? Like that should be a 15-yard illegal.
Or you should be down. That's what they've done in college now. You can't when you start to slide, you're down there.
Yeah, but this isn't a slide instance. So. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
But if you're you slow up and then running, your momentum stopped.
Like baiting. I mean, I don't know what you'd call the call, but the
otherwise you open yourself up to get jacked up.
If you're going to be slow near the sidelines, you should get smacked.
Absolutely.
I mean, get out of bounds.
Absolutely. It's out of bounds. It's a safe area. And they call that as soon as a quarterback even sniffs the white line.
Oh, yeah. They get which I don't have a problem with that either.
No.
I mean, if it's our quarterback and, they'd be unhappy as well. But you got to protect the quarterback.
If it's there and you don't use it, that's on you.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what the number is this year, but it sure seems like it's much lower. You can't have 68, 69 starting quarterbacks over the course of the year. I mean, the product is just worse.
Yeah.
People aren't going to watch, DeVito versus, Teabag.
They shouldn't have to watch DeVito against anybody. But that's another time. Anyways, that's going to do it for our show today. So for my partner, Matt Williamson, For Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline, and for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there on YouTube. You got to check that out. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.